Well, Kelly, it is such an honor to have you here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and to share so many golden nuggets, which I know everybody's going to enjoy today. But before we get started with all the good stuff, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what you do?
Thank you, Amrit. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. So I'm Kelly West. I am one of the founders of Only Networking. I'm a wife, a mum, a stepmom, and all of those things that we do because we have busy lives. Only Networking is a company that I've set up with my husband. So we run that together. It'll be 6 years old in January. So it's business networking, and we call it the business network for people who like people. And that for us is incredibly important because as part of that entrepreneurial journey, you need to be in the right space. You need to be around people that champion you. And I guess the biggest point for me to say about me setting up this business was that James and I, my husband, realized that with the family makeup that we have, having a disabled daughter, we needed a business that would facilitate the lifestyle that we need to have around Kennedy for her care, to be able to be on, on call when needed. So it's myself, James, and my eldest daughter, Kearney, run the business together. So a true family business.
I know. And I love it because I can speak for myself. I'm one of your members. And when I stumbled upon you, I was just like, this is amazing. And I've already been very good at networking, but I just felt a completely different atmosphere when I joined Only. And I can highly vouch for what you
Thank
guys are
you.
doing. And I do believe that the foundations that you've set is very, very transparent, authentic. And that's what business should also be about. But how did you guys start the business? How did you guys decide, this is what we want to do? And by the way, for a husband and a wife as a team to go and start a business, it's not everybody's cup of tea.
No,
But how did you guys get into this kind of idea of let's start Only and let's create our own networking business?
it was a real, if this happens, then that happens kind of moment. So if I go
Yeah.
back to the beginning, and I'll try not to be too elaborate with this, but James and I met 10 years ago, actually, this year. So we have children, but we don't have children together. James has three boys, I have two girls. So dynamics there were different. And then when I was out and about networking, and I went purely to gain business,
Yeah.
I needed to earn money. So I needed to bring money in, and I went to gain business to get an ROI, and I didn't need friends. I was 30 odd, whenever I was then. My initial networking journey started when I was 22. So I'd been networking probably for 10 years. I met James when I was 35. There we go. So I transitioned from that real baseline, need a business, don't need friends, to 10 years later, no, the friends bit's really important, but I still need the business. So that 10-year piece for me was really pivotal. So when I met James, I was in that space of, yeah, I like this. This is really good fun, and I get to meet good people, and I'm getting business, and that's fantastic. James came at it from a completely different space. So when I met him, he was in quite a toxic relationship. So he'd been there for 18 years, it just come out of it, and he went networking to gain confidence, to
Mhm.
have good conversations, and to be around people that took him away from all of that stuff. I spilt coffee on him because I really fancied him and I didn't know what to say to him. That was really embarrassing. These are little anecdotes that come from it. And very quickly, we realized that networking brought so much to us personally.
Yeah.
Some people just don't like it. Some people really struggle with it. And I think that's a real shame because if you can open your eyes up to what it can actually bring, it can give you so much. So we were at an event one day, and I wasn't able to join because it was a closed networking group, but I went to sub for people as and when needed. And we were sat there and we went, why don't we ask them if we can help them develop this? Because it's great. We could make it bigger. And they didn't want to. So we said, okay, well, let's have a go. Let's see what we can do. And our first meeting was in person back then. And it was 18 people in a room in Winchester. And we floated the idea of this group, and 17 of them joined. And we went, this is interesting. This could be something that we could do full time. And we then obviously elaborated on that. But the point of us starting it on React was that we were web designers, digital marketers, and we wanted to get a base of potential customers, refer us to that business. But the key moment for us was there's too many networks out there that have an ulterior motive, PR companies, marketing companies. And please don't get me wrong, they have a place and they're wonderful, but they are generally there to promote another business in the background. And we didn't want that. So we ditched all of the businesses that we had before and we went fully into Only, which I think you can see because our sole purpose is to grow the network for the people in the network, for no other reason.
Yeah.
Roll that forward to a pandemic, can't be being in person, worked for us because, as I said, having a disabled daughter, it does tie us here when we have her, and she keeps us very grounded. So our vision always was to have a purely online network, but the pandemic just really sped that process up. And now with, I think it's 22 UK groups, 23 UK groups and 3 US groups, the world is our oyster, and we're just trying to expand on that piece.
Yeah. And so much of what you said, I've experienced as well. And I think you also attract that kind of members into the group, because I've met so many members already. And when I have that conversation with them, it's just like, oh my gosh, we're aligned.
Yeah.
Instinctively, you just feel like, oh my gosh, we're talking the same language. This is great. And I think that is what you guys have created. It is not that kind of, we're doing this because actually we want to promote this. It's like, no, we're doing this because this is what we believe in, and this is what we feel people should actually experience. And they do. And every single other person that I've spoken to who is the only member said exactly the same thing.
Okay.
So that message is definitely coming through. I think you guys are doing a very good job.
Thank you. It was tough because at the beginning it was James and Kelly's network. So we had this wonderful brand and we called it Only, and nobody ever knows how to say it until they've spoken to us a couple of times. Is it Only? Is it, what is it? ONLE? No, it's Only. And the genesis of that was we kept saying, oh, we only want it to do this. We only want it to do that. Oh, I was like, well, just call it Only. Let's just find a different way of spelling it. So that's how we came up with that. But I think the point here is we're adults, like treat people like adults, allow them to be their best, trust that they come with good intentions and that they want to support each other, because those who come in with the wrong intentions very quickly fade away and they don't come back.
Yeah. I've seen that, and I've experienced that with other networking groups as well, where you can quickly see people coming in if they've got an ulterior motive, and they quickly fade out again because they just don't fit, so to speak. But from your perspective, with all of your experience then from networking, why do you feel it's so important for business owners to tap into networking and to utilize that as one of their strategies in their marketing?
There's 3 fundamental pieces here, and I'll probably forget where they are. But firstly is the bit we became business owners for a reason. We wanted to be in control of our own destiny. Yeah, we wanted to make our business work for us. Unfortunately, too many people don't have it the right way around. We work for the business still. We're still an employee of something that we've created. But if you take that as to the attention it was meant to be, why wouldn't I want to go out working within my business to go out and meet other people who are on the same journey as me and experiencing similar things to me, either in that moment or have done or will do? Because being a solopreneur or even having a small team is really, really lonely, especially if you're working at home. Even if you're in an office, it's like, it's lonely. Yeah. And I don't always want to have the same conversation with the same people. So just to be able to get out into a community and an environment of people who are aligned, that's fantastic. And that is massively underestimated, the power of what that feels like. The other piece is around, it's a really good place to test your marketing message. Like if you are a startup business, newly year, 6 months to a year, small size business, or you're really established and you're looking to push boundaries, change product services, why wouldn't you want to ask those really important feedback questions to people that you rate in your network, that you see consistently? And that one, I think, is probably the most untapped benefit of a network. Have a one-to-one with somebody. You could have been in only for a year and you could have been saying the same introduction, but if you don't ask the other however many people are in the room, does that make sense? Do you actually understand what I do? Would you want to buy that off me? Do you know anybody that might want to have a conversation with me about this thing? That bit is massively untapped as well. And then the third thing, which I told you I would forget what the third thing was. No, the third thing is the all-important referral piece, isn't it? And of course, it would be wrong of us to say that people don't go out to network to get business, but take the focus off of that, because once you release the pressure from it, you'll open yourself up to all the other benefits. And guess what will happen? At some point, you'll get a bit of business as well, and you'll have enjoyed the journey and getting to that place too.
Exactly. And I love what you shared there, because especially that last part about, yes, obviously we need to go out as business owners, we need to network, we need to establish relationships, but going with the intention, I think, first of all, to build and establish relationships, make connections, instead of going with the intention of how many clients can I get from this?
Yes.
Well, how quickly can I get a return on my investment? I
Yes.
think if you kind of switch over to another intention of building those relationships, just getting out of these four walls
Definitely.
and just have conversations. But also, equally personally, from my experience, is when I come away from networking events, I need to feel energized. I need to feel elated. I need to feel like this was amazing. I enjoyed this. My energy is through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And I would want other people to feel the same way when they've had a conversation with me. And I think that's the key, is also have those conversations, build those relationships with people that you feel that you can recharge your batteries through, basically, in a way. And it's got to go
Definitely.
both ways.
Oh, absolutely. It's the consistency there. A lot of people struggle with the fact that you either go weekly or monthly, depends on what network you go to. The time is different. We're monthly. So for some people, that thought, what, I've got to meet the same people every month and I've got to say the same thing. Well, yeah, because you don't get anything unless you embed that consistency piece.
Yes.
Because if you're asking people to go out there and be ambassadors for you and to think about you when the opportunity arises, they're not going to do that after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 conversations. They're going to do that after 10, 12, 15 conversations and touch points with you. So I think people get really impatient, and we do live in a world of, our attention span is shot to pieces, isn't it? We were talking about this. I'm doing a podcast just now about productivity with Louise Miller, and it's like, we are not in the moment enough. We don't value the importance of just being in this space and doing the do and trusting that cementing that and doing it time over means you will have success. And the other thing in there is, unless you're constantly keeping up to date with those people that are core to your inner network, when you network and you meet hundreds of thousands of people, in my case, they're not all in my inner core, they're not, but you have, it's like rings of the tree, isn't it? They're all really important, because the important ones we don't need to keep in here. They're out here in the ether somewhere. But those rings you have to touch base with, because things change and people's services change, their lives change, what they're doing has changed. And you could be referring or introducing somebody for the wrong reason if you're not touching base and having that conversation. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But I think the point I'm making here, Henriette, is enjoy it. As you
Yes.
said, I want to enjoy this conversation and I want to enjoy being in this space. And it's really lovely sometimes when we've had this just a couple of weeks ago. We launched the meeting. One of the members was a little bit late. She messaged me to say, "Oh, I'm really sorry, wasn't really feeling it today, but I thought I'd come along." She broke down on the call at the end and said, I just want to thank everyone, because I wasn't going to come today. And the fact that I have, and this has been such an amazing conversation, I'm okay, I'm good, I can face today. So many people would quite easily go, I'm not going to go because I'm just not feeling it. And that's not a good group to get in.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
Exactly. And it all comes back down to making sure that you're in the right space.
Yes.
And that you obviously tap into the right energy.
Yes.
So I know part of my audience is sitting here listening to this, whether they're already seasoned business owners thinking of starting their own business, and they're going, nope, networking is not my thing. I will never do it. I'm never going to tap into it. What advice would you give to those who's listening and having those thoughts of like, networking is not my thing?
Do it. Just try it. Okay. You can't convince me that it's not for you unless you've proven to me you've tried. Okay. And you can't prove to yourself unless you've tried. If you don't want to do it, that is a different thing. Okay. And I always say this to people, I can teach anyone networking skills. I can teach you to be a good networker. I can teach your message. I can teach you what to ask for. I can do all of that stuff and I do that regularly. What I can't teach you is how to have a personality and be a nice person. Okay. Nobody can teach you that bit.
Yeah.
But if you're coming at it with the right intentions and you're being open-minded, you have to try it. Now, of course, I'm biased, Only's fantastic. I co-founded it, but try different networks. Go and try them. Don't go and hit and run. We were talking about this earlier, weren't we, before we started? Don't go and hit and run on networking, because it won't work, because you'll tell me then it doesn't work, because it doesn't if you do that. But consistently go out and try a couple of networks that you will then throw yourself into and give it your all. because at that point you're going to start to be converted, because you're going to start to see the benefits, which you won't see if you're just dipping your toe in the water and doing it. If you really hate it and it is like pulling teeth, don't do it. Because if you come at anything with such negative thoughts, it is never going to work. But I would massively urge people to just push yourself out of the comfort zone, give yourself 3 months and consistently show up, do the do, take the activities, have the one-to-ones, get involved in the talks, do all of that stuff. And if after 3 months you can genuinely say, I've tried it, yes, I love it, hopefully, or no, it's not for me and I need to find a different way to market.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny as you said that, because I think networking is also a skill set. It's not something you're born with. It's a skill set. You've got to learn it. And I remember the first time way before COVID, when I went to a networking group, I was one of those standing with my cup of coffee in the corner, just going, please, somebody come and talk to me. This is so awkward. Yeah. And then I just realized, why am I waiting for people to come and talk to me? I just need to basically jump it and just go and say, hi, I'm new here. I have no idea what's going on. Who are you guys? And I just started with that one little sentence, and it just started to open up conversations, and my confidence built with time. Definitely. And I think that's what all of us has got to do, is just kind of, like you said, go for it, try it out. But you'll see that actually lightning doesn't strike, walls won't cave in around you. You're going to be okay.
And there's a really important thing to remember. No one's going to remember what you said when you leave that room. You're going to worry about it for days on end, before and after. No one else is worried. Yeah, no one else is worried about that piece. It's important to you in that moment. And even if you make a mistake, even if you fluff your words, even if you trip over if you're in person, it doesn't matter. It's gone, and there's something else in that mindset. And I think there's probably an important piece to touch on there. I'm with you. My networking journey started with BNI 25 years ago, and I was 20 in a room predominantly of older white males in suits, and it was nerve-wracking, but I sold holidays back then, so it was a really good demographic for me to sell to. But I didn't have the confidence to go and approach people, and I waited, and I spent a lot of time feeling awkward, uneasy, and not in a good space. Did that for years. It wasn't until I got older and I got more comfortable with myself that I was able to then go into conversations and interrupt and say, oh, sorry, I'm stood over there on my own. Do you mind if I come in? And be open and honest. People will do one of two things. They'll either let you in and you'll have a good conversation, or they'll sort of shun you and you'll never have to speak to them again. But you will have found out either way. That takes time. For me, the online piece is really, really beneficial. And I can't believe I would have ever said this. I love online networking. I really struggle in person now. And there's a combination of the fact that I've done so much online that it's just second nature to me. When I go, people talk to me, and I've got asked this question the other day, what do you do about Zoom fatigue? And I'm like, I get in-person people fatigue. I don't get Zoom fatigue, because I can manage that. I can stop the conversation. I can, set expectations, but I can't when I'm in person. So really think about what is going to benefit you, what's going to enrich you, and which space is going to be the right place for you. If you want more transactional, source a more transactional network. If you want relationship, then you want only, or something like that. And it's about doing a bit of homework as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about tapping into what you feels right. And this comes back to what we said earlier. Try a few. And then decide where I'm going to go into it and where I'm going to stay consistent. And I think that's the key. And even if you're an introvert, don't use it as an excuse. Because I've heard so many people saying, oh, I'm an introvert, I can't do any networking. That is just an excuse. Anybody can learn the skill, and anybody should tap into it and try. Because the confidence that you're going to build and the doors that it's going to open up for you as well is something that you wouldn't get from anywhere else.
Yeah, most definitely. And introverts really play in well to online space, because we are given a set amount of time we can speak, and there's no awkward interruptions, or so that's a good place to sort of start if you are introverted.
Exactly. Now, for everybody listening, from your experience, are there 3 tips that you can give us on what we need to think about or do to hone in on our networking skills? And by the way, for those of you listening, if you're thinking about networking, if this is something you've never experienced before, these 3 tips might just help you, give you that push in order to go out there and start networking. So Kelly, from your experience, what are 3 key tips that you can share with everybody here that they can either enhance their networking skills or utilize to start networking?
Okay, I've got loads, but the 3 main things I think would be you have to have a clear and concise message. You have to be able to tell me succinctly what it is you do. I have been networking for people for years and I've still not understood what they've done because they've tried to blind me with science in their introduction. They've used acronyms, or they've used words that are only specific to their industry, or they're being so vague that I need to piece that all together myself. And I'm not going to, because my attention's off onto the next thing.
Yeah.
You should be aiming to be able to introduce yourself in 20 to 30 seconds, I would say, because that's all people are going to give you. You don't need to be clever. You don't need to be funny. You just need to be clear and concise. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is how it helps people. And this is how you can access it. Now, that sounds a lot, but if you sit down and you work out how to do that, and it takes time and practice, you can get that down into probably 7 or 8 sentences, a couple of paragraphs most, and it will take you less than 30 seconds. That's tip number 1. If you can't do that, then work on that. Tip number 2 is being interested, not interesting. Listen. Yeah, listen. And that sounds so obvious that it's almost doesn't feel like you should mention it. But we get so hung up and so passionate and excited about what we do that we just blur on that person. And then we go, oh, man, I haven't asked you anything about you. I'm so sorry. We'll have to have another conversation. And it's like, oh, that moment's gone now. Listen, because you'll probably understand this because you're a really good networker. The people that do listen and actively ask questions, they are the best networkers because they are tapping into how they can help you. Because a good networker knows I'm only going to get support if I give support first. And you can only know that if you're listening. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then the third one would be, what are your goals for networking? What are you actually trying to achieve? And I don't think most people, when I say that, they go, I've never thought about that before. But we go networking because we think we've got to go and get business. We don't go networking because we want to get out of our heads for an hour and a half and we want to speak to other business owners and have a decent conversation. We go networking because we've got to sell this package that we've spent days, weeks, months, years building, and we've got to go out there. No, that forms part of the goals. But it could be that my goal for the networking session I've got coming up this afternoon is got the attendance sheet. My goal is I want to have a conversation with Chris and I want to have a conversation with Joe. That's it, because I'm setting an intention. I'm going to hold myself accountable for it, and I'm being realistic as to what activity I can do in that time. And then my goal for those one-to-ones might be I'm going to ask Joe and Chris how I can help them. See if I can give them an introduction, not a referral, but an introduction. And there's a big difference there because actually networking is just about bringing more people into the conversation. And that's what the goal is.
Yes. And I love that because I think all 3 of those tap beautifully into creating a networking strategy for yourself. Number 1, showing up.
Yes.
Number 1, very important. But also having a clear message, just like you said. And what I sometimes say to my clients is when you get clear on that marketing message, it's almost like you don't want to stuff a big, massive, giant marshmallow into people's mouths and say, here, take it in, enjoy it. And they just feel like, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming. Or I've got no idea what you're doing here. All you want to do is with that marketing message is give them a tiny little marshmallow and say, oh, you enjoyed that? Good. Well, let me share a little bit more with you. And then you give them another one and another one. So it's about giving people that bite size, but it's more than enough for them to absorb, to take in, to go like, yes, I get it. Let's have a discussion. Let's talk more about it. And then the second part, oh my gosh, I completely forgot. What's the second part?
Second part was listening.
Listening.
Ironically.
There was my brain going, listening. Totally didn't listen to that one. But yes, listening, the second part. And this is what kind of helped me get over the fear of networking in the beginning, is I decided that I don't know what to say to people. So I'm just going to ask people questions to talk about themselves because I know people love to talk about themselves. So that's how I got out of my comfort zone when I started networking, is just asking people questions about themselves. And then eventually I know it will turn around and will come back to me. But at that point, I feel like I'm a little bit calmer. And I got to know this person a little bit before we move the conversation to me. But it's so true. And I'm a business coach. I mean, it's ingrained in me to listen and to ask people questions.
Mm.
But I never knew that I was starting to do the right thing, even at that point,
Mm.
utilizing that skill for networking. And then the last thing, of course, is have a goal in mind. But it's like we said, coming back to everything in the beginning, is why are you networking?
Mm.
It's not to get clients. That is just one of the benefits that will happen eventually if you're doing it right. But setting your attention, setting your goal into that meeting, be present at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you want to gain from it? But also, what is it that you want to help other people with? It's a two-way street.
Hugely, yeah, hugely. And I think people think about time and where's my time best used. I think if all you're doing is having one-to-ones all day, every day, I mean, that's my job. That I get paid to do that, and it's fantastic. But if it's not your job, no, you have to limit it, which is why I say, unless you go in with a goal of what can I realistically do this month, and some months you might not be able to do much at all. That's fine. That network's going nowhere. Still going to be there when you've got time to do more than next month or whenever that may be. And I think people forget that through times of being busy, they drop their networking activity and then suddenly they're really quiet and they've got to build all of that back up again because they've let the
Yes.
relationships go and the consistency and momentum's gone. So it's just about keeping it level and being realistic. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, Kelly, we can have this conversation forever because I love networking. I love talking about it. But most importantly, you have something really special for everybody here listening. You've got a special invite to try out only. So I know people are sitting here listening, going, okay, yes, maybe I should give this a go. And yes, I want to tap into a market that, I can really just feel like I can show up, be authentic. And
Yeah.
you've got this opportunity, this free invitation for everybody. So tell us a little bit about the invitation and what they can do.
Absolutely. So the link that you're going to share will give people the opportunity to pick one of our groups that they can come and attend. And again, this is all online. So we name them geographically, but only because we have to call them something. If we called them red, blue, green, it wouldn't be quite the same, would it? You don't have to live in the area of the group. We don't cover the whole of the UK or the whole of the US. So I would suggest pick a group that either fits you geographically or suits your diary. It doesn't matter either way. And the point of you coming along and experiencing that is I can tell you how great networking is all day long, but unless you've come and actually experienced it, it's very hard for me to tell you how you're going to feel in that moment. So my invitation is for anybody to come along and as I say, whether that's a UK company, business owner that wants to come to a UK group or US based. And if you want to try across the pond either direction, then you're welcome to do that as well.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for making that available to all the listeners. So for you watching the video or listening to this right now, if something is, how can I say this in a nice way? If you've got this little bit of excitement in your belly and it's just created this bit of excitement going like, oh, I want to try this. I want to try this. Now's the opportunity to do so. I promise you, just like we said, you're not going to know unless you try it. So you've got a brilliant opportunity here with a safe space, a safe environment, people who are already in that kind of mindset zone of we're just here to build relationships and to enjoy networking. So I know that you're going to be in a safe space if you're going to try this out. So the link will be below in the show notes. By all means, go and click on that. And then obviously you will be taken through on how to book your networking. And then also, if you want to get in touch with Kelly and with James, the link to their website details will also be in the show notes, as well as LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with Kelly via LinkedIn, too many K's and L's. If you want to connect with Kelly via LinkedIn, please do so. And then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to them as well. They'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have. But by all means, Kelly, this was absolutely amazing. I loved having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to us. And I wish you all of the best. And I'm sure you and I are going to see each other very soon again.
Yes, I hope so. I very much hope so. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Speak soon.
Speak soon.